Okay, here's a quick video on how to solve this equation right here. So what I've done is I've graphed on the left. I've graphed -3 cosine pi over 4x, which is right here. Now I think it's fair to see the period is going to be, according to the graph, it looks like it's about 8, but we'll show that in a little bit. And the red line is just a line along the x-axis to show 0 to 2 pi, which is where I want my solutions. The other graph is 1, so I've graphed that right there. And now I see the graph crosses here, and it crosses here. It's going to cross it again way out on the right, but I'm not interested in those solutions because I want my solutions to stop here. So let's get into actually solving this. Here we go. So, first thing that I would do here is I would divide both sides by -3. So I have cosine of pi over 4x equals -1/3. Then I would take the arc cosine of the left and the arc cosine of the right. So it now looks something like this. Arc cosine of the cosine of pi over 4x equals the arc cosine of -1/3. And you notice what I did? It's almost equivalent to like dividing both sides by 2 when you're solving a simple equation. What I've done is I've taken the arc cosine of both sides of the equation. And now, the arc cosine of the cosine is simply pi over 4x equals the arc cosine of -1/3. Now, this value you can find off the calculator, but I want you to keep in mind there is going to be 2, even though the calculator is only going to give you 1. Let's examine that a little bit further. The arc cosine, when I type into the calculator, the arc cosine of -1/3, the value that this gives me is 1.910 something. So we'll just cut it off there. But if I look at go back to the unit circle. Let's just run back, draw a picture of a circle. Okay, so bad circle, but there's the unit circle. Now the cosine is going to be -1/3 here. This will be -1/3, which means the arc that would go with that is this, which is what the calculator is telling me, 1.91. But I could also go this way to get to the same arc, which would be like -1.91. But I don't want solutions on the negative side, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say, okay, well, this would be 2 pi minus 1.91. And when I do that, that number comes out to be 4.373 rounded. So now what I have is, I have this. Pi over 4x is equal to 1.91. But the other valid equation that I have to solve, since I want all the solutions on that interval, is pi over 4x equals 4.373. So I have to solve both of these. Now what ends up happening is, I know that I have 2 solutions, so I know both of these are going to work. But let's just actually solve this and see. When I do, I get x equals, and now if I do, it's really going to be 1.91 times 4 over pi, because I just multiply both sides by 4 over pi, and they cancel each other out. And what I get when I do that is 2.432. So I get x equals 2.432. Now on the other hand, when I solve this one, multiply both sides by 4 over pi, I get x equals 4.373 times 4 over pi, which turns out to be, let me just punch it in real quick, 4.373 times 4 divided by pi. I get 5.568. So that's 5.568. And I think it's fairly clear to see that these two numbers are definitely on the interval 0 to 2 pi. 0 being 0, 2 pi being 6.28. Now, having the graph, it's also obvious, but if I didn't have the graph, I would have to check and make sure that these were the only solutions. So think about this for a minute. If I go over here, all right, if you can see over on the other graph, there's a solution here, right? Now it's off the graph a little bit, But there's going to be another, if I go here and then I add the period, I'm going to get my next solution, which would be like over here. And then if I went here and I added the period, I'd get another solution. If I went here and subtracted the period, I would get a solution. If I went here and subtracted a period, I would get a solution. So what I have to do, and again, I know it's obvious in this case, but I think it's just good to make note to show why the other solutions are out of range. So next thing we have to do is find the period. So well, the period for this function is going to be 2 pi over 4 coming from this. So it's 2 pi over this number right here, which is equal to, when we reduce it, the pi's are going to cancel. And well, I would multiply the top and the bottom by 4 over pi. And then this is 2 over 1, so the pi's cancel, everything cancels out, and I'm left with 8. So the period of this graph is 8. Now if I take my first solution, if I do 2.432 and I add 8 to that, I'm going to get 10.432, which is clearly too big, so I don't want it. If I do 2.432 and then I subtract 8 from that, minus 8, I end up getting negative 5.568, which I don't want either because it's negative. So I know as far as this one goes with regards to the period, that's my only solution. Now if I do the same thing with 5.568 plus 8, I'm clearly going to be bigger than 2 pi. And if I subtract 8, I'm clearly going to be negative, so I don't want those solutions either. So in this instance, these would be my only 2 solutions to this problem. So I hope that helped. I'll put some more videos up on solving these trig equations as I come across them.